My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop. Bag drop.
Bag drop. All right, guys, welcome back. EYL Atlanta edition. This is our second home for sure. We spend so much time out here. So this is going to be a dope episode because it's something that we have never covered as far as the banking industry. Shout out to Killer Mike. We had the honor of speaking to Killer Mike. And obviously, everybody knows that he's involved with Greenwood Bank. And he gave us like kind of an overview of the whole situation. But we never actually spoke to like somebody that's actually running the bank.
Yeah, we had questions. He was like, y'all got to ask Ryan.
Yeah.
Y'all got to get Ryan on here. Y'all got to ask Ryan.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
So Ryan Glover is the co-founder and chairman of Greenwood Bank. If you're not familiar with Greenwood Bank is a Black-owned fintech bank that is launching very, very soon. And he's the founder of it. So this is the first time that we've actually spoken to somebody that's actually running a bank. So we have a lot of questions, and he has a long history outside of the banking industry. He started Bounce TV.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this even more impressive. It's like he doesn't have a banking background, but has a bank.
Yeah, yeah. So he was gracious enough to invite us in his home, and we're here to do this interview. I'm sure it's going to be a legendary situation. So thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Man, thank you for coming to my home, man, and spending some time with me to talk about Greenwood and my long history in the entertainment, in the media, and now in the banking world.
Yeah.
We forgot one thing.
What's that?
He's an HU guy.
Oh, yeah, Howard University.
Holla.
Shout out to Howard.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Bisons.
That's right.
Should I say the real HU?
Yeah, Hamptons.
Yeah, no, we're the real HU, first and foremost.
All right, you said it.
Yeah, no, exactly. The guys that went to Hampton couldn't have gotten into Howard.
Oh, man.
Shout out to Envy.
Yeah.
There you have it.
All love.
All right, so let's get into this.
Sure.
So you're the head of the bank, but before that, right, you found Bounce TV, right? So how do you make your way from going to Howard, Bounce TV, banking? It's like a lot of different parallels here that's not really.
Yeah, and that's important to kind of get into. It's a great question. Because as I was mentioning, if there wasn't if I didn't enter my past chapters in different industries, there would be no Greenwood. So, just to be clear, from the Bay Area, in California, went to Howard University, graduated from Howard. Actually, at Howard, I was bitten by the entertainment bug, right? So at Howard University, as you guys know, there's a long history and lineage of successful Black entrepreneurs, right? And I was a part of the culture of successful Black entrepreneurs that were born at or came out of Howard University. So Howard University graduated. I have a degree in accounting, ironically, and I knew, after graduating, I wasn't cut to be an accountant, right? Love business, but accounting just wasn't, I believe, my calling. So relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, started a studio called Noontime. So we made records from everybody from Mary J. Blige, Aaliyah, Sean P. Diddy Combs, a good friend of mine who I met on Howard's campus, and a litany of other hip hop and R&B artists that were super popular in the 90s and the early 2000s. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth from a business perspective, is in the music business, right? So I started Noontime publishing and production company. And from there, I knew that it was important to create content that mattered to our culture. And I realized that if you create content that means something, that matters, it'll stand the test of time. So that's kind of where I got my start.
So we went from Noontime to Bounce. Is that how? Because I mean, we're talking about Greenwood, and the first time we're actually talking about somebody who has their own bank, but we've never spoken to anybody who had their own broadcast network.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of firsts here.
No, without a shadow of a doubt. So spent 10 years in the music business.
Okay.
Noontime was an incredible journey for me from a music perspective. Then I transitioned from Noontime into television media.
Okay.
So I worked at a television network, Turner Entertainment Network, TBS, TNT, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, created programming, scripted and unscripted programming for those networks. Spent 6 years there at Turner and really learned the media business. Utilized my resources and relationships to kind of broaden, at the time, Turner's involvement and understanding of our culture. And then from Turner in 2010, I started Bounce TV, African American Broadcast Network. Started off just me and my partner, grew that network to over 250 employees. Bounce TV is in over 110 million households across the country. And I got to tell you guys, really what I prided myself on with Bounce is, listen, I got 5 children from 22 all the way down to Zach is 8. I got so many kids, I forget the ages of them. But I prided myself with creating responsible programming that was entertaining, that all of my children could watch. And I did not have to change the channel if a show that I programmed actually was on, right? Yes. So credible content, responsible content, entertaining content for the culture is really what we prided ourselves on at Bounce TV, and it resonated with the community. What
kind of shows did we bring first to Turner and then obviously to Bounce? What are some of the shows that the audience might be familiar with?
Yeah, so I didn't program the Tyler Perry slew of shows, but I was a part of, on the executive side, identifying that kind of content will resonate within our community.
Okay, gotcha.
So before I was at Turner, there was no Tyler Perry, there was no Ice Cube and Joe Roth, there was no Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. But while I was there, that programming existed because I helped the Turner Entertainment Networks understand that our culture and our community is not a fad. It matters. And we come in many different shapes, sizes, colors, and have many different interests. Turner should broadcast content that kind of spoke to a culture that was diverse. So I was instrumental in helping the network understand really who we are as a wide culture.
I'm thinking, like, without you, there's no young OG.
Listen, you said it, not me.
Shout out to Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, that's right.
So, how do we get to starting Greenwood?
So, sold Bounce in 2017.
You sold Bounce?
Sold Bounce TV. So launched a network.
Can we say how much?
We sold it for $302 million.
I wrote that
down. to Scripps.
Yeah.
And, quite candidly speaking, guys, I thought about retiring. I love sports. I love my family. And, I wanted to do something that didn't necessarily force me to have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and work all the way through 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
So a good friend of mine, because you're speaking of Greenwood, I'm not a banker nor a technologist, right? I am an individual who's built multiple businesses in multiple industries for our culture and our community that I believe have always created content that has resonated and been consistent, educational, and has helped our community advance. So a good friend of mine, a guy by the name of Paul Judge, who is actually a technologist, said, I know you just sold a Bounce TV for $302 million. You just can't just ride off into the sunset. You have more resources, more life, more energy that you need to lend to the culture. It's like, listen, man, I don't want to do anything, right? And he said, listen, you got a ton of resources, relationships. You need to look into another avenue, another way to, kind of help our people advance. You should think about the neobanking space. Didn't know much about the space in any way, shape, or form. But what I did know, Troy and Rashad, is that I had built multiple businesses over the course of my life, and I never utilized banking resources to build any of those businesses. And to me, that was an atrocity.
When you say that, you mean so you didn't get loans from banks?
Not only did I not get loans from banks, my first thought about building business was not to go to banks to get loans. I never thought about, hey, any ulterior or alternative lending facility to build a business. Mm-hmm. It's always been utilizing personal resources to build brands and businesses. Unlike my friends who are and counterparts who are non-African Americans, the first thing they think about is going to banks or lending institutions, right, to further their ideas and their dreams. I never thought about that. And the reason why I never thought about that, rightly or wrongly, is because we know generationally, banking resources have not been kind to individuals of color, have not been kind to us for a number of reasons. And my thought process was, at the point where I decided to start Greenwood, was not to look at all the atrocities that have occurred, but more so to look at how I can be a part of the solution versus talk about the problem, right? So, again, not a banker nor a technologist, but I build businesses, and I know what business owners need and what they want and what they deserve to have, and I want to be at Greenwood a conduit for that.
Yeah. So when you're doing this, I can imagine like you said, you had sold the company and obviously up hundreds of millions, and I'm assuming there might have been a little bit of pressure there. Like, I have to do something. Because I've accumulated this, I've had more resources than the average person in my community. After that happens, right? What's the next step? Do you find a team once Paul convinces you now?
Sure.
Yes, I need to do this. Who's the team, and how do you go about finding them?
No, that's right. So just to be clear, Greenwood is a digital company providing banking resources for the community. That's who we are. We are going to roll our products out in this fashion: a debit spending card, credit products, lending products, lifestyle products. We will be a full service banking platform for our community. We're full service banking in our consumers' hands. Apple and Android Pay. Mobile deposits, ATM services across the country, 2-day early pay. So all of the resources and the functionality that traditional brick and mortars have, Greenwood will have as well. As I mentioned, not a banker, not a technologist, but all the businesses, to answer your question, Troy, all the businesses that I've built have been built on an idea, hard work, strong prayer, right? I'm a family man, love the Lord, but also surrounding myself with people who are professionals and who know what they do in their areas of expertise, right? Mm-hmm. So my record company that we built, Noontime, I'm not a rapper, singer, can't dance my way out of a paper bag, right? But I can identify talent, and I identified some of the top producers, writers in the industry to create the platform and the success that Noontime enjoy. Bounce TV, same thing. It was all about building a media company with professionals that have done, that have worked in the media business for decades. Same thing with banking, right? I won't go into detail, but there was a myth that there is not enough or a lack of banking talent that exists in the African American community that work in traditional finance. Not the case. Mm-hmm. When I decided to launch Greenwood, I had talent coming from traditional financial institutions and from other banking sources that wanted to participate with Greenwood as a mission. So that's kind of what we did.
Yo, make no mistake, I started out just like many of you, a 9-to-5 worker at this school right behind me. This is where it all started for me, but I learned skills over the years, and I want you to learn some too. I want you to learn how to become financially free. I want you to set up legacy for your family. I want you to build generational wealth. You can do all that and more. Check out InvestFest. Swipe up.
All right, so let's get into this conversation, the meat and potatoes. All right, so How do you start a bank? All right, what's the first steps? Board of directors. What is the first steps to start a bank?
So in order to start a bank, one, you've got to have capital. So, this same time last year, ironically, after I decided that I was going to start Greenwood, digital banking for our community, I decided that, one, I'm going to utilize my own personal capital to start the bank, but I'm also going to raise capital from angel investors, and not just capital from anyone. For me, I wanted to partner with people who, one, understood our mission. And just so we're clear, Greenwood is in place, one, to eradicate predatory lending. I want to put all check cashing businesses out of business. Two, Greenwood is going to recirculate capital in the community. An ode to Greenwood, which is an ode to the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? In the 1920s, the Greenwood district was a hotbed for African American and minority businesses that thrived. And the reason why those businesses thrived is because capital recirculated in the community. So $1 recirculated dozens of times before it left the community. Unfortunately, in today's community, $1 recirculates, in our community recirculates only 6 hours, right? So one of my missions at Greenwood is to recirculate capital in the community. The third mission that we have is to deploy capital to deserving borrowers. I mentioned earlier that I and in all candor, some other African American business owners that I know don't have the same access to capital that others have from other communities. We want to eradicate and extinguish that fact of the matter. So, one, you've got to raise capital.
So how much money?
So we raised $3 million.
That's it?
We raised $3 million initially.
That's all it took?
Initially, that's all it took, right? So we announced October 8th Greenwood, after we raised $3 million, right? I kid you not. The day that we announced that we were launching Greenwood, the next day, 10,000 folks signed up on our waiting list. The next day after that, another 10,000. At the end of the month, there was 100,000 folks on our waiting list. Yeah. At that point, I knew that we needed more resource to scale. And if we were going to service the community the way clearly the community said they needed to be serviced. Yeah. So I had no idea that I was going to go into and move into a Series A round of funding this soon in our lifespan. We have a product that launches at the end of this summer. You know, our goal was to raise $3 million, raise capital for our angel round, and then launch our digital bank. Yeah. And then slowly but surely acquire customers to participate, right, in our process. We have 500, close to 600,000 folks on our waiting list at the moment. That's scale. So I knew that we had to raise more capital. We had to scale internally. We had to raise capital to market our product. We had to raise capital to hire as well. So we started off, Rashad and Troy, with 3 employees. We now have 15. By the end of the year, we'll have 25 employees. By the end of next year, we'll have close to 100 employees running or assisting me in running a Greenwood digital bank.
So, all right. So $3 million was initial, but then you realized that definitely wasn't going to be enough for 600,000 customers. So you go in, you take money from venture capitalists and other angel investors.
Yes.
And how much money did you raise?
Yep. So I'm proud to announce. The amount of money that we raised, but I'm more proud that we raised it from a wide mosaic of investors, right? So to answer your question, we raised $30 million to our balance sheet for Greenwood Series A. But we raised that capital from 6 of the 7 top U.S. banks in the country, all led by Truist Ventures, other entertainment companies, other media companies, venture capitalists, and individuals as well. Mm-hmm. All individuals, companies, and corporations who are, one, passionate about our mission, who believe in what we're doing, and who have agreed to, in lockstep, join arms with us to close this wide wealth gap that exists in America. Greenwood's not going to do it all by itself, by ourselves, right? And the wealth gap that exists in America is not going to be closed in 1 year or in 2 years or in 5 years for that matter. But we are a part of, as I mentioned earlier, going to be a part of the solution versus the problem.
That's interesting because you have JP, you have Bank of America, Truist, like you said, Wells Fargo's involved, PNC Bank, all financial institutions that are now supporting your financial institution. When you presented it to them, what made them say, you know what, we could do this ourselves? What made them believe in your vision for Greenwood? Yeah.
So I think one, they saw the team that we put together. We have a world-class banking team. I think 2, they understood the mission. Mm-hmm. They understand that we're passionate about deploying capital into our community, recirculating capital, and closing the wealth gap. 3, I really believe, Rashad and Troy, that they understand that, although we're providing digital banking services, but the guys that are running the digital bank in Greenwood are not bankers, right? We are business people that authentically understand the plight, the situation, and where the community as businesses want to go and grow. I understand where Pinky Cole from Slutty Vegan was, where she is, and where she wants to grow, right? I don't know if another financial institution or even another challenger bank understands where Pinky wants to go and grow. I can give you a number of different examples in Atlanta alone of minority business owners that have great ideas, that have a wealth of talent, but just don't have the access to capital and the resource to become as big as we know that they can be. But I do. I know those individuals.
Yeah. So they're looking at you like it's not a competition. You actually have a pulse on a community that they don't have a reach to.
I look at myself as Robin Hood.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
I look at myself as Robin Hood. I don't look at, and I get the question all the time, why do you think all these institutions now, want to participate in the message in the movement? And, my answer to that question is, I don't have the bandwidth to think about what happened yesterday and 100 years ago. My goal and my mission is to help solve the problem now and in the future. And if these banking institutions want to utilize Greenwood as a conduit to do it, and Ryan Glover and Paul Judge and our world-class team at Greenwood to do it, so be it. We are here to be that conduit and to spread that goodwill and mission and capital. The other thing I want to mention too is there's a yin and a yang. There is having access to capital, right? But there's also a financial education component to our mission as well. It's one thing to know or have access to capital, but it's another thing to also know what to do with it, right? So our mission is to give access to capital, but also help and educate our community to understand what they can do and what they should be doing with the access to capital, utilizing the resources that we have.
So was there any hesitation as far as having the other banks that traditionally have not given loans to people of color to have them involved in your bank? Did you ever think like this might be a conflict of interest, or it might, be looked at as something that is not, in line of what we're trying to do?
Not in any way, shape, or form, Rashad. I have a very old school mentality on the way business at any level should work and operate. And I believe that it takes a village to raise a child, right? I believe that it takes a well-oiled conglomerate of resource to affect a culture, a generation, or thwart an issue or a problem that has existed for generations, right? So the non-access of capital in our community has existed for generations, for hundreds of years. One digital bank with a great mission, with tons of personal resource, isn't by itself going to thwart and solve that problem. I looked at it as not only will we need, the 6 out of 7 top banks and the other companies, I think we're going to need not just more resources on our own. Candidly speaking, I believe that there needs to be more Greenwoods, right? When I started Bounce TV, there was, BET existed. There were other African-American networks that existed. But that we also had at Bounce had a lane of our own. And, you guys have cable. there are 1,000 channels that you can pick up on cable, right? There's only 6 or 7 African-American networks still to this day, right? That exist on cable, right? But there should be more, right? So Greenwood is existing, and I believe a pioneer in the digital space, the digital banking space for Black and brown people and allies, right? So I don't want my consumer just to be of color. I also want our consumer to be allies, individuals who aren't necessarily African American or Latino or of color, but individuals who understand our struggle and are compassionate to our struggle. So I want there to be other Greenwoods. I want to inspire other folks to build Greenwoods after us.
All right. So you guys obviously had the financial firms that are backing you, but you also have fintech companies, Mastercard and Visa, that are involved in Greenwood as well. What was that process like in getting them on board?
Great question. So strategically, I wanted to partner with both Visa and Mastercard. As I mentioned earlier, we could have gone to 1 or 2 banking sources to raise our Series A capital, but strategically, I wanted to create a mosaic of partners that had different resources and relationships that could help us go and grow, right? As we growed. With Mastercard and Visa, same process. So we have a relationship with Mastercard on the debit side, and we have a relationship with Visa that will roll out credit products with Greenwood strategically. Okay. So we have debit products that we're partnering with Mastercard on, and credit products that we're partnering with Visa on. And the reason why we did that is because I understand that Mastercard, they have their own relationships, right? For example, Mastercard has relationships with the Major League Baseball, right? Visa has relationships with the NFL, right? So having multiple relationships with multiple institutions gives Greenwood the opportunity to have multiple partnerships, right, in the country and in the world. So strategically, that's kind of how I think and how I operate.
So as far as so having a bank is still a business, right? So the business model of banking is that they charge interest and they invest the money in the capital markets and they make money on your money sitting in the bank. That's like the 3rd grade explanation, right?
That's right.
That's the business model?
That's the model. So, yep. So at 30,000 feet, we are launching a debit and spending card at the end of the summer. That's the first product that we're rolling out. Mm-hmm. And there's what's called interchange, right? That exists when customers utilize or swipe their card. There's interchange that's exchanged that we get a small piece. The FDIC insured bank gets a small piece. The merchant also makes a small piece. So that's the interchange model. Okay. We also, as I mentioned, will launch credit products where interest comes into play, and we'll have competitive credit rates on those products as well. We'll also have investment products that we'll roll out as well. So they're in lending products. Mm-hmm. So all of the products that Greenwood will roll out, they'll all be creatively priced. Yeah. That our consumers will be able to take advantage of. But our biggest asset, I believe, assets over liabilities, is that we have the ability to identify credible, insolvent borrowers in our community, individuals that wouldn't have the same opportunity to have that access to capital that others in other communities have.
Well, how do you? So, all right, this is interesting because it's like you're walking a thin line. I'm assuming because you have to make money.
That's right.
We never apologize for making money. That's what we're in business for.
That's right.
But you also don't want to be a predatory lender, and you don't want to take advantage of people.
That's correct.
But then when you don't want to lend somebody money that can't pay it back.
That's right.
But then you also want to give people opportunities that doesn't necessarily have opportunity somewhere else.
That's right.
So
great question.
How do you walk that line?
All right. So I'm going to give you a quick analogy. So I come from the media space, television media space. You all are familiar with the Nielsen ratings, right? Mm-hmm. And Nielsen ratings really, kind of identify the important or the successful shows that exist across the country, right? Do you guys know anyone that has an actual Nielsen box in their house, right?
No.
You don't.
No.
You don't, right? I don't either, right? So that is a metric that media uses to identify qualified, incredible content, but we don't know how those programs are identified or rated, okay? Mm-hmm. In the banking space, we're judged on credit, right? Now, credit is a good barometer to use for, 90% of the community on whether you pay your bills, how often you pay your bills, you pay them on time. But I think, me personally, there are other metrics that we should, in the banking industry, be using, that we plan on using to identify qualified and credible sources that we would say, hey, Rashad, Greenwood will stick their neck out on the line to loan Earn Your Leisure X number of dollars to build a bigger and broader media business that you're building. Okay. There are other things that I believe that bankers should look at outside of purely credit to identify qualified borrowers. And we are going to kind of do that at Greenwood.
It feels like there's this social responsibility in what you're saying. And so is part of the products that you said, like you said, we have spending and savings products, is part of the products an education component when people are applying to get these loans?
So content, as you guys know, is a part of our DNA. I come from the media space, so creating content to educate is important for us. Looking at Earn Your Leisure as an example, which I believe is a Bible to educating our community, and a resource for me that is untraditional compared to, some of the other programs that you may see on linear television for our community, right? I think utilizing content to educate folks in a entertaining but educational way is absolutely a way to kind of educate our community on money.
Well, thank you for those kind words.
So, all right. The board of directors
Yep.
conversation. Who is your board of directors? Yep. How important is it to have a board of directors?
It's very important. So I sit on the board. Paul Judge is on our board. Bo Young, Ambassador Andrew Young's son, is on the board. And there are two other individuals a part of our board that are part of our Series A investment community. And we selected those individuals not just because they are in the banking community, but because they have resources in the digital banking space. As I mentioned earlier, in our series, in our angel investment round and our Series A round, it wasn't just about receiving a check from certain individuals. It was, money is always important, as you mentioned, Rashad, that, we're running a business. So money, you need capital to run the business, but it's also about partnering with the right individuals who have resources that can help your business grow and develop. So our board of directors not just include individuals who have capital and access to capital to help our business grow, but also have resources as well. So it's always selecting the right partnerships, in my personal opinion, that's as equal as important as the capital. So our board of directors are important, not just to help the business, to start the business, but also help it grow as well.
All right. So you guys are online bank. What is the difference between the online and physical? Obviously, physical locations, but I'm assuming that you didn't want to do the physical bank because it's a lot more overhead and it's a lot harder to manage than the online situation.
Without a shadow of a doubt. So we look at what we're doing at Greenwood as a bank in a box. Okay, a digital bank in a box where we're providing the same digital experience or banking experience as traditional banks, but we believe that we're providing a more authentic service for our community without the overhead, without the brick and mortar overhead that traditional banks, traditional financial institutions have. So those additional expenses drive the cost of doing business up, right? So you take a look at your business, Earn Your Leisure, as an example. You guys gather and create content, from my understanding, not necessarily in a set structure that you have hundreds of employees where you gather the content, and other services that you provide in a brick and mortar space. You guys go and you go get the content and go craft the content and go to the people where they are. That's what we're doing. We are meeting our customer where he or she is, not necessarily having our customer come to where they think we should be. So to us, that's a more important way of providing banking services.
So you guys, obviously you started with the capital to get the bank, and you said Series A's funding. Then you had your the board that you put together.
What's going on? Traditional universities are outdated and don't teach you how to become an entrepreneur. They just teach you how to become an employee.
You go to school for 4 years and you leave with nothing but debt. But here at EYL University, our curriculum is much different.
Our university teaches you real world skills that you can use to gain financial freedom right away. In traditional universities, you learn from professors that have never did what they teach, and they teach you how to become an employee. At our university, we use instructors that are currently successful in a specific field that they teach, and they teach you how to become an entrepreneur.
For a limited time only, you can join EYL University for 25% off of the annual membership. Learn about stocks, credit, real estate, crypto, and more. Go to EYLUniversity.com right now and sign up to become an earner.
Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Head over there now.
Every business that I've built, as I mentioned earlier, has been built around best-in-class executive talent. There is no sustainable business that will thrive without individuals, one, who are best in class and have done what you are paying them to do for some time. So I knew that there is competent, incredible banking talent that worked at traditional FIs, that worked at other challenger banks, that understood our mission and our motive. And I make folks offers that they can't refuse. candidly speaking. So, I sold the fact that we're authentic, that we're providing a service that hadn't been provided to our community, that we were going to make history. I believe that there was a community of minority banking individuals and talent that wanted to participate in our mission and what we were building. And that's what happened.
So like the debit card, will people be able to use that ATM machines? And how does that work? Since you don't have an ATM machine, like they go to like Chase and then they get charged like a fee for using it at Chase?
Yep. So we have partnerships, ATM partnerships with Truist, with PNC, with Wells Fargo, with Allpoint, and MoneyPass. So I'm proud to announce we have the widest, broadest swath of free service use of ATMs across the country. So there are no charges for any of our customers at those locations. Those locations are growing weekly. So we are making other deals with other banking institutions to even grow that service in that web.
From a technology standpoint, what kind of technology can we expect from Greenway? I know like some banks they have where you can take the picture of the check and it's directly deposited. I know we can use Zelle and we can use Cash App. Are these things that'll all be a part of the Greenway situation as well?
Yep. So from the technology side, so we're starting best in class, full service banking in your hand. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, Apple and Android Pay will have over 1,000 ATM locations at the moment. 2-day early pay. Mm-hmm. So all of the digital services that our competitors have, Greenwood will have as well.
Okay. So how do you see people using? So obviously it's not open yet. When it's open, I'm definitely gonna have an account. But right now, like I have Chase as my main account, then I have Capital One. I was like an online savings, just a slightly higher interest rate. That's kind of like how I have like my banking set up. How do you envision for people to use Greenwood? Do you envision them using it as their primary bank, as a bank that they have some money in, as a bank that they have a online savings, all of the above? Like, what is your idea of how Greenwood can be used in a banking portfolio?
Yep, great question. So we're building Greenwood for users in our community, an authentic digital banking experience for our community. We don't envision the entire minority community to leave, right, their banking institutions that they currently bank in. I personally have 3 banks that I bank at. But Greenwood is a more authentic banking experience for our community. Greenwood is a banking institution that will provide other opportunities, mainly for African American and minority business owners, right, to have access to capital to build personal and professional goals and dreams that there are other financial institutions, more traditional banking institutions, don't currently utilize those relationships for. Mm-hmm. So we envision for our community to look at us as an additional resource, right, from a business perspective, to have access to capital personally and professionally.
So I know you spoke about the spending and savings product, the lending product and credit products, but I was intrigued because you said that there's going to be investment products. And so I'm thinking, and I've seen a lot of financial institutions do this now, where you can invest directly into the stock market through your account. Or even I'm thinking now, what is the role that crypto will play in Greenwood? Is that something that you guys are looking to include when you fully launch?
Yep. Not when we fully launch. Okay. No. So we will start with, as I mentioned, a debit and spending account, mm-hmm. right? and then we'll roll into credit,
Right.
then lending, and crypto is what we call a fast follow. So we're building our crypto products now as we're building our credit, right, products, and our investing, our credit, investing and lending products as well.
Yeah, one of the things that you said that you were going to do is community involvement. I know that's a big part of what you're doing, and I was reading that every person that signs up, there's going to be 5 meals that's given out, and you partner with Gooder.
That's right.
Our girl Jasmine Crow. Shout out to
that's
Jasmine,
right.
alumni.
That's right.
But also, I believe $10,000 a month is going to go to a small business. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, the recirculation of capital, as I mentioned, is one of our major missions. I mentioned earlier that the reason that the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma thrived and was so successful is because capital recirculated amongst multiple businesses multiple times in that community. So we have at Greenwood a give back program where our customers have the opportunity to round up their change, right? They make a purchase. Their rounded change can either go to the NAACP, UNCF, Gooder, or a combination of all of those organizations per swipe. So our goal is to create even a wider swath of businesses that we want to participate in that program. The second thing that we're doing is we're identifying every month, as I mentioned, African-American businesses that we want to deploy capital to in $10,000 increments. So we have a program that will start this fall where we are deploying $10,000 to that identified business. And in fact, we gave our first check we cut a check to T's Barbershop in Tulsa, Oklahoma, last month as the inaugural minority business to start that program.
Is that something that you plan on doing continuously? We were actually in Tulsa. We spent some days out there on the 100th anniversary of the massacre, and we got to speak to the locals. And one of the things that they were saying is like, we need more people to come back. Is that something that Greenwood, obviously being the name, is you're making concerted efforts to make sure that those people are taken care of as well?
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, that community is at the core, in the heart of what we represent. It's not just from a namesake perspective. It's also to Troy and Rashad, a part of our DNA. The recirculation of capital, again, I can't harp on that enough, is really the lifeblood of what Greenwood is all about. Deploying capital in the community is what we're all about. You mentioned, Rashad, predatory lending. Thwarting predatory lending is what we are all about. And those three nuances all existed in Greenwood, and it was the reason why that community was successful, and is the reason why I believe we will be as well.
So when is it going to launch? And I know a lot of people was on a waiting list right now. You're talking to me off camera about the different phases that you have to go through the launch. So
yeah,
what's the phases for the launch?
Yep. So we have close to 600,000 people on our waiting list currently. So we have 3 separate phases. There is an alpha release where we test our product to a certain number of people. There's a beta process where we test our product to a wider swath of individuals in our community. And then there's a limited release where we basically open the rest of the community up to our product. So by the end of this year, we should have our community fully engaged in our Greenwood products. Next year, the start of 22 is when we'll open up Greenwood to the community as a whole.
And that's true for the United States, right? Right now, is it the continental United States?
Continental United States.
Okay.
That's great. That's a good question.
Right. So because I know it's not just African American, but the Latinx community. So I'm thinking Puerto Rico, I'm thinking Dominican Republic, a lot of these places that would need this type of service. Is that something that we're looking forward to in the future?
Without a shadow of a doubt. So, we are, as a culture and a community, a global culture and community that I believe needs access to capital. Globally, just as we need access to capital from a continental United States perspective. Mm-hmm. So as we go and grow, so will our products across the pond, if you will, across the globe.
Right.
What can you say to people that people, we have a hard time trusting each other, especially when it comes to money. So like, what kind of reinsurance can you give to people? It's never going to be an issue where it's not issues. There's always going to be issues, problems, things that's just part of the game. But, to try to let them know that, you're here to help and you're not going to be, part of the problem as far as like predatory lending, high interest rates, stuff like that.
That's a great question. I think to answer that question, I have to let my personal history and track record in business kind of speak for itself. As I mentioned earlier on, I started my professional career in the music entertainment space. And I prided myself on creating consistent quality products in the music business. Then that dovetailed into creating products in media. My stint at Turner Broadcasting and Bounce TV, where I created credible and quality media content for the African American community, which then in turn dovetailed into me launching Greenwood, a platform, a technology company that will release digital banking services for our community. In each of the chapters of my life, I have created content that has been credible, that has been consistent, and I think that has resonated authentically with our community. What I've done in my other chapters is what I plan on and I'm going to do at Greenwood. So as you mentioned, yes, there are hiccups. There are hiccups at Bank of America. Mm-hmm. There are banking hiccups at other African American banks and other challenger banks. So, problems occur. But know that I have over 25 years been consistent and stood behind every product that I've created and that I have released to my community. And Greenwood is no different.
There you have it. It's an honor. What would you like to leave the people with? Social media for Greenwood? How can they get on the waiting list? What's all the information, website, all that stuff?
Yeah. www.bankgreenwood.com. We are a growing digital bank that will grow. I want our community to understand that we are compassionate and passionate about our mission. That we are sincere and that we're going to continue to create products that we believe resonate with our community, authentically, consistently. And I want to also mention that we're all about partnerships. So it's an honor and pleasure to be, again, in business with Earn Your Leisure and to partner with the products that you guys are working on and growing, because what you're doing is important, and I think that the more that African American and just minority companies band together and work together, which doesn't happen that often, but the more we can sit down and create that bonding, the better I think we are as a community and a culture as a whole.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Troy, housekeeping items?
Yeah, well, congrats. And thank you for
brother.
opening up your home for us. And congrats to Ambassador Andrew Young and Killer Mike, a former UI alumni, on this amazing endeavor that you guys have taken on. And thank you for the partnership, man. We're looking forward to it. And shout out to everybody on patreon.com. That is our Proud to Pay program. Obviously, Tier 5 members, you have access to EYL University with over 10,000 members. That's a lot, man. I remember doing this and it was 500 and now we're at 10,000, which tells you that the community is growing, not only because of the information we're giving, but the information that you are also providing to each other. So shout out to all the earners and shout out to the merch team. We got some new stuff coming, so be on the lookout for that. Love is love, y'all.
Peace.
Thank you for rocking with us. We'll see you next week. Peace.
My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop, bag drop.
Bag drop.